Hey, future CPAs. Let's get into some stuff that's going to stick with you, not just for your next quiz, but all the way to the board exams. Today, we're demystifying two major topics: how cooperatives handle conflict and what makes certain co-ops so unique. Think of this as building that long-term knowledge base. Okay, so let's kick things off with a super common problem: people disagreeing. Now, in a typical company, a big fight usually means calling the lawyers, right? But in the cooperative world, things are totally different. The law makes everyone take a step back because there's a mandatory first step you absolutely cannot skip. And this slide right here really lays it all out. For a regular corporation, it's often a straight line to the courthouse. But for cooperatives, it's a completely different mindset. The law, and you'll want to remember this, RA 9520, forces them to try and solve it internally first. And I gotta stress this, it's not a suggestion, it's a mandatory rule. That's a huge concept for the exam. So here's our game plan for today. We're going to walk through the first step in a co-op conflict, then see what happens when that fails. After that, we'll put a spotlight on some special co-ops you need to know, and we'll wrap it all up with a retention hack to make sure this info is locked in for good. All right, first section. So how does this whole solve it internally thing even get started? Well, it all begins with a very specific group of people. Think of them as the co-op's first responders for any disagreement. And here they are. The Mediation and Conciliation Committee. Every single co-op has to have one. They're basically the in-house peacekeepers. It's a 3-member team, the board of directors picks them, and their whole job is to be the mandatory first stop for any internal disputes. The process has to start with them, no exceptions. But what if, the family meeting doesn't work out? What if they just can't agree? Well, the process doesn't just end there. The law lays out a very strict, non-negotiable path forward. You're going to want to burn this pathway into your brain for the exam. Seriously, you cannot just jump from a dispute to arbitration. Look at step 3. If they can't reach a deal, the committee has to issue something called a certificate of non-settlement. Think of it as the official proof that you tried. Only with that certificate can you move on to step 4. Conciliation is a mandatory prerequisite, period. So you see, this committee has a few jobs. They send reports to the Cooperative Development Authority, the CDA, and they even suggest training. But for exam purposes, their number one, most critical function is issuing that Certificate of Non-Settlement, or CNS. Without that piece of paper, the dispute is dead in the water. It is literally the legal ticket you need to get to the next stage. And this quote from the Cooperative Code itself is just perfect. It really drives home how serious this is. Once a dispute gets to voluntary arbitration, the arbitrators have exclusive and original jurisdiction. In plain English, that means they are the one and only authority to handle the case at this point. Their decision is final and binding. Okay, so we've nailed down the strict rules for conflicts. Now let's switch gears and look at 4 specialized types of cooperatives. These are classic LSCPA material, and knowing what makes each one different is an easy way to snag some points on the exam. All right, this slide is your golden ticket. Screenshot it, write it down, do whatever you gotta do. Each of these co-ops has a unique legal perk. Agrarian co-ops, they get preference from the government on infrastructure projects. Transport co-ops, they get first dibs on franchises. Workers co-ops are pretty straightforward, owned by the workers. But the one you absolutely cannot forget is the cooperative bank. They are supervised directly by the Banco Central ng Pilipinas, the BSP. That's a massive deal and a classic exam question. Okay, it's time for the retention hack. We're going to boil all this down to the absolute essentials. If you remember nothing else from this explainer 3 years from now when you're deep in your board review, make it the stuff on this next slide. This is it. This is your cheat sheet. Review this until you know it by heart. Disputes always start with conciliation. Can't agree? You need that CNS to move on. Agrarian gets infra preference, transport gets franchise preference, workers co-ops are owned by workers, and, I'll say it again, co-op banks are supervised by the BSP. This is pure high-yield exam material. Know it cold. And I'll just leave you with this final thought. This whole process is designed to protect the harmony of the co-op, right? But does it always protect the individual? What are the trade-offs? Thinking about the why behind the rules, not just memorizing the what, that's what's going to make you a truly great CPA. Good luck with the review.